Creation Mom, and we are at the Red Gulch Dinosaur track site in, well, near Graybull, Wyoming. We are actually out in the middle of open range at the moment, and we are 100 miles east of Yellowstone National Park. And this is a place that has been set up by the Bureau of Land Management because they have found all these dinosaur tracks. Now, when you look at it at first, it doesn't look like there's much here, but I've been scooping out some of the tracks that I've been able to find. Now, one thing that is really, and almost all of the ones that they've been able to find, to identify, have come from a three-toed dinosaur. And they range in size from about 3.5 inches to 8 inches. And they have identified 1,100 different tracks out here. Well, I'm not that good, so I can't see them. But here is one. Here's one set of toes. And then over here, there's another set of toes. And then here's another one. And here's one. These apparently, if you ask me, and I'm not the expert on this, if you ask me, this animal's running. Or this actually probably is from a different toe, a different size animal. But there are only two here, 2 toes here. This toe is kind of, the middle toe is at an angle. But the thing that is really, aside from the fact that this is so cool, dinosaur tracks. I mean, this is like finding a fingerprint in the paint on an Egyptian tomb, or a handprint in a cave from, you know, people way back in the past. Actual animals were walking here. Ones that all we know of are from their bones and occasionally the imprint of skin or something like this. So a dinosaur trackway is anywhere where there are 2 dinosaur tracks together, so you can see that they actually walked. And that's important because you can tell how tall they were based on how long their legs were. These animals are two-legged. They're the bipedal type, and they think that they are they're carnivorous. But anyway, significant thing is all of the ripples, because the ripples tell us that they were made in moving water. The original thought was that all this land here was originally filled with an inland sea. However, by having tracks here, it had to have been by the shoreline, or at least someplace where it was shallow enough that the animals were walking. Well, if this were the flood, and as creationists we believe that these are from the flood, how was this possible? Well, the flood basically was not so much the rain. It was the big continent getting pulled apart and pushed around in pieces. The main part of it being split down the middle, which became the Atlantic Ocean, with North and South America on one side and Africa, Asia, and Europe on the other side. But you got lots of other little bits moving around. And in the process of doing that, the continents covered up the plates of the oceans. Now, why is that significant? Well, back in 2004, there was the big tsunami, and 750,000 people died because of it. And that was from a displacement, an earthquake, a displacement in a fault line that was only about 20 or 30 feet. And we're talking, some people have estimated 30 feet per second of the Pacific plate diving underneath the continents as the continents basically ran over them. Well, when that happens, you get a tsunami. And when you have the tsunami, then all the water that gets displaced gets pushed up onto the land. And it brings along with it the sediments that are bottom of the ocean. This rock is limestone. Limestone started life as lime mud. And it was made of ground up mollusk shells, so seashells, all ground up and it settles down to the bottom of the ocean, and then it gets swooshed onto the land during the flood. Well, the quality of a fossil really depends on how tiny the grains are in the rock. So sandstone, really, yeah, you can get some fossils there, but not really very good ones. Limestone, we get lots and lots of fossils in. The very finest fossils come from silt and slate and that kind of thing. So here we have limestone. How do we know that this all came from the ocean? 90% of all fossils ever found anywhere on Earth are things that are attached to the bottom of the ocean, or at least they don't move from it. Things like trilobites, which run around on the, well, they used to run around on the bottom of the ocean with lots of legs, or clams, or oysters, or sea lilies and corals, which are actually attached to the ocean floor. That's what we find more of than anything else. After that, you get things that move, you know, things like fish and dinosaurs and even plants. But all of those are only like the top 10%. They find things that are in the bottom of the ocean on the top of Mount Everest. So at one point, all of the stuff that was the top of Mount Everest used to be at the bottom of the ocean. So why is it that these tracks actually lasted? Well, there's a wave, right? The tsunami comes along, and it brings with it all of its gunk, its sediment, which is why limestone is sedimentary rock, and it leaves it here, and then it goes out. Because it took 5 months, according to the Bible, before the highest mountains were covered. So during that 5 months, you have got massive waves coming in, but as they come inland, they lose energy, and then they swoosh out again, and then they come back, and then they swoosh out again. They come back, and they swoosh, and on top of that, then you've got the regular tides that just happen twice a day from the moon, and so you've got all like that, swooshing things around, which is why limestone rocks can look so complicated. Not just limestone, but sedimentary rocks can look like a complete mess. But at any rate, what happens is that this lime mud, is not like sand, which collapses in on itself. It was firm enough that when the animal put its foot here and then walked away, it stayed. And then in comes another layer, and it covers it up. And the weight of that layer pushes out the water from the lower layer and turns it into rock. Because lime being lime, the lime actually ends up turning this into concrete. Well, actually glue. It works as a glue or a cement, technically. So, which turns this mud into what functions as concrete. Not in this place, but in other areas, particularly we know down in Texas, there's the Dinosaur trackway that's there. It's kind of been demolished for souvenirs, but it had layer after layer after layer. So you'd have dinosaur tracks on one layer, and then on the upper layer there'd be more dinosaur tracks, and another layer there'd be eggs, another layer there'd be more tracks, and then another layer there'd be more eggs. Well, it's coming in and it's going out. It comes in and they run through the water, and it goes out, and they go, hey, we can lay our eggs now. But then the water comes in and covers them all up again with the lime. So all of this, the ripples and the fact that just the fact that this is limestone, and the fact that the footprints stayed. Well, I don't know about the footprint staying, but at any rate, this is all an amazing piece of evidence for the flood. And so one thing I always want us to remember, Psalm 119, 160, thy word is truth from the beginning.